I wanted to discuss God from a point of reason and logic and looking at it maybe even a little bit scientifically. And I think I've been thinking about this because there's a few people that are here. Thanks. There's a few people that are here that have taken it upon themselves to engage in a study about apologetics. Okay, and they're trying to learn about external evidence outside the Bible that proves that the Bible's true, that proves that God exists. And I think it's inspired me to think about that myself, or think about God. And I want us to understand that our faith and what we believe, what we think, isn't just based on, what we get from the Bible. The Bible is a product of everything that's around us. It's the product of God himself to teach us. But not everybody believes that the Bible is the ultimate authority. There's a religion that exists that is 1.6 billion people, I think, or something along those lines, that doesn't believe in the Bible at all. And there's other religions out there too. And there's a lot of people these days that don't believe that God exists. And for people that don't believe that God exists, the Bible for them doesn't even make any sense. So what you have to do is understand that there is proof in the world, in the universe, all around us, that there's a God. And one of the first things that you really want to take a look at about it being a problem, that people don't believe in God, and that people are embracing humanism, or people are embracing worldliness all the time, is this study that I came across when I was reading. And it was disturbing. It's a study that I was reading from Psychology Today from 2013. You could probably Google it and find it. But this is 6 years ago, okay? And I hope that you're just sitting there and thinking about this, how scary this is. Because, I don't know, for me it was frightening. Okay, so they asked these people, random study, if somebody would be more willing to save their own dog from a out-of-control bus than a stranger. And guess what? 45% of women and 40% of men would choose the dog over the person. Does that scare you? Does that scare you? I mean, think about it for a minute. If you believe that people, fleas, dogs, chickens, goats, have all evolved and are all equal, then why not save the dog first? There's no reason to think that's a problem. And that's why 40 to 45% of people would save a pet over a person. And that should really bother you. It should bother you not just today, but also when you go out into the world and you go on vacation. You should take a look around you and make sure that you're not the only one that you know there, the only stranger. You should also look out for no buses and run from purse puppies. You know what I mean? Those little things that are in the... Because you're done. If you see one of those, it's all over. Because everyone's saving the purse puppy, the chihuahua, whatever it is, over you. You're toast. So, but anyway, why is this happening? Why is the value of human life so greatly diminished? It's because people don't have morality anymore. They don't have a godly morality. They have a morality of their own. Everybody does what is right in their own eyes, right? We feel morally justified saving an animal over a human being because we don't appreciate that people are created in the image of God. And this comes from theory of evolution. And I'm not really here to argue with evolution, right or wrong or whatever it is. But here's how evolution works, okay? Evolution works by adding millions and billions of years to things, because they have to have a certain amount of years in order for it to be conceivably true that what they're saying is correct, okay? And so they say that the Earth is 4.6 billion years old, primarily because that's what it would take in order for there to be possible that life could happen by accident. However, 4.6 billion years mathematically is insufficient. And there's a movie out there that uses a lot of statistics and mathematics to figure out how long it would take for life to form by chance. And it's such a statistical improbability, it's impossible to really convey it in real words or to understand it. So what they did was they explained how likely it is that amino acids would form to create a protein. And proteins are one of the building blocks of life. It's not life, but it is amino acids forming a protein. It came from this movie, Origin, Unlocking the Mystery of Life, and you can Google that too. But the statistical probability that a protein would be formed by amino acids is 10 to the 164th power. And how can we express that in terms that are even understandable? Well, follow me if you will, because the math is hard for me, but you'll get the idea. All right? Say you build a road across the entire universe. It's 90 billion light years long. Okay, we're going to talk about how long it would take for life to happen by accident. How long you it's like kind of like pulling, you know, when you go to, well, nobody should be going to a casino, but say you went to a casino and you were pulling that thing. How long would it take before you win? Okay, what are the chances? What are the odds? How long is it going to take before you pull a winner? You know what I mean? Well, this is how long it's going to take. All right, you build a road that goes across the entire known universe, 90 billion light years wide. And then you take an amoeba. You know what an amoeba is? It's a one-celled organism. Sometimes they crawl up your nose and eat your brain. You ever heard about those? But anyway, aside from the brain-eating ones, you put them on that road, and you send that amoeba off on his way down that road, and he moves at approximately 1 foot per year. And you put one atom of the universe on that amoeba, and you say, go amoeba, move the entire universe from one side to the other. Okay? It would take him 10 to the 27th power to make it across the universe, or 5.7 billion years to travel across the universe and drop one atom off at a time. And there's approximately 10 to the 80th power atoms, and that's a lot of billions, okay? 80th power is a lot of billions. And so it would take the amoeba 5.7 times 10 to the 107th power. That's billion, lots and lots and lots of billions. Are you following me here? Why this is so ridiculous? For years, for him to transport the entire known universe from one side to the other. And still, that is 7 orders of magnitude less than those aminos coming together and forming one single protein that isn't even life yet. Okay, so when they say, do you have faith? Do you have faith in a God? Do you have faith that this could happen by accident for real? Okay, so it would take an amoeba approximately 56 million transportations of the entire universe to equal the chances or the amount of time that it would take to luckily pull that jackpot and get accidental protein. That's not life. That's protein. The most basic life forms that have ever been discovered have 300 proteins. Are we getting how ridiculous this is? Okay? When they tell you about evolution in school, they don't tell you about the odds of life happening by accident. You know why they don't tell you? Because it's absolutely astronomically impossible. And you know what's a lot more likely to happen? This. Colossians 1:16 says, for by him all things were created, both in the heavens and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities. All things have been created through him and for him. And, you know, atheists have objections to this, right? They say they never have seen God. Well, funnily enough, they've never seen life happen by accident either. Because they've run tests after tests. They tried to replicate life. They've been trying to do that for a long time. You know, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, right? But they have these chambers that represent a primordial earth, and they like, hit it with lightning and all these things. Like, you can imagine Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, except on, an atomic level. They're trying to do something, but guess what? They are never able to. They just posit that it's possible, that if they keep doing it for a really, really long time, that it's going to happen eventually, even in their perfect conditions. But they haven't done it. They haven't made a protein like this by accident. You can do it on purpose, make proteins, but you can't do it by accident. And I was thinking about this. I was thinking about science too, and I was thinking about the conservation of energy. And there's a scientific law called the conservation of energy, a principle stating that energy cannot be created or destroyed, and it can only be altered from one form to another. And I really think it's a biblical thing, because I think that everything that's created, all matter, everything in the earth, it comes from energy. It comes from God. It comes from something outside of the universe, something that's always existed, right? Everything goes from a potential state of action, which is standing still, to action itself. And now that's chemical changes from like solids to liquids to vapors. Everything's always changing. The atoms are always moving around, doing things, changing things that we can't see. And everything comes from something else. Right? We came from our parents, our parents, our parents, our parents, our parents, their parents, on down the line. Millions, well, not millions, but, a lot of generations. You know what I'm saying? So everything comes from something, but where does that first spark come from? And why does everything keep on moving? Have you ever thought of that? Why doesn't everything just die or energy just run out? What keeps everything alive or being and existing? It's weird. If you think about these things, why does everything exist? Why is the universe moving? Why is everything expanding? Well, science doesn't have an answer for those things. They just say because, and they say it's a brute fact. You know what a brute fact is? That means we can't explain it, we don't understand why it is, so we're just going to say that it is. When there is evidence all around you, and there's a book that tells you exactly why it is right here. And something that's not so ridiculous. And if we think about this, we know that science is a certain amount of energy in the universe, and the universe is always changing. It cannot be created, destroyed. Energy is the cause and the essence of all things, this moving and unmoved, potential and actual. Everything comes from something. In the 13th century, this is a long time ago, right? What is that, 700 years ago or so? There was this guy, Thomas Aquinas. He was a medieval philosopher, and he said that God is the energy that is keeping the world moving. He's the outside external force that is within everything that keeps everything going, right? And he called it the pure state of change or motion, which is in Latin called actus purus, right? It's the creation and destruction and reformation of energy all in itself. And I think the state of being, the state of energy, the state of movement is in the Bible. If you will go to Exodus 3:13 through 14, it says, "Then Moses said to God," 5,000 years ago, by the way, "Behold, I am going to the sons of Israel, and I will say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you. Now they may say to me, what is his name? What shall I say to them?" God said to Moses, "I am who I am." And he said, "Thus you shall say to the sons of Israel, I am has sent me to you." God is telling Moses that he is I am. He is existence. He is being, the act of being itself, the act of energy, the act of creation. Everything, the essence of everything in itself. That's what he's telling Moses. I am. I don't know, I get like a little shiver up my spine when I think about that. But he's telling him something that there's no way that Moses could have conceptually understood in his life. No way. You're talking about a guy, 5,000 years ago. And the only reason why he knew this is because God told him that. And I think Paul, the apostle, fleshes it out a little bit more. He tells us a little bit more about what that's about. when he and let's go to Acts 17, 26 through 28. He said, and he made from one man every nation of mankind to live on the face of the earth, having determined their appointed times and the boundaries of their habitation. Creation, destruction, energy is never completely gone. It only changes form, right? He determines when it changes. He controls everything. That they would seek God if perhaps they might grope for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. For in him, we live and we move and we exist. God is the energy of life. He is creation itself. He's moving everything. In him we live and move and exist, as even some of your own poets have said, for we also are his children. Your soul, the spark of who you are, who God created and made you in his image, that is eternal. That is forever existing. It is the energy, and it changes, right? That's what the Bible tells us. You're never destroyed, you only change. And what are you going to change to? Right? That's what he's talking about, right? So we live and we move, we exist in God. God is the very essence of being, the very essence of motion and change itself. There is nothing created or actualized that's apart from God. You can't have that. Everything has to come from a source. And that's what science says, right? Energy is never created or destroyed, it only changes. And that's what God creates. God is constantly creating us in a state of being. There is only one explanation, logically and scientifically, when we put the two together that makes sense, and that is that the universe was created on purpose, and that creation is continuously being manipulated and held and moved by God himself. Well, atheists try to say that God created, then who created God? But that misses the whole point, right? We understand that there's an origin of the universe. Whoever created God or whatever God is doesn't make any sense. It doesn't, it's trying to understand something from our point of view, right? If we know that the universe had an origin, and we know it had a beginning that exists outside of time, then that has to be God, right? And we're trying to force our death, our mortality, our limited understanding on something that's beyond what we can possibly comprehend, right? And I've said this to other people before. How, if you are 3D in 3 dimensions, do you explain yourself or explain that you are 3 dimensions to someone who's 2D, who is flat on a board? Right? How do you explain to them that there's depth? It's very, very hard, isn't it? It's almost impossible. But you know what comes really close to explaining what the depth of the universe is? This book right here. This tells us, hey, 2D people on the earth, there is a 3D, and that's God. Right? That's what it's saying. So from logic and for an honest look at logic and reason and science, we can see that it makes sense. It's practical that there is a God. And that then you might ask, well, how do we know that the Bible is right, or the God of the Bible is the correct one? Well, these scriptures all come from the Bible. And as far as I'm concerned, that is pretty amazing that these concepts, these really deep and powerful concepts that are hard to understand, even for us today, even for us with all this knowledge about science and the world and all these natural laws, that these things all point to the fact that God is real, and they exist all in the same book, which is the Bible. Aside from that, what our, the folks who are studying apologetics know is that the Old Testament has a lot of information in there predicting the coming of the Messiah, predicting the coming of Jesus Christ. You have Isaiah 53, not to mention lots of other passages too. And Isaiah 53 is so accurate and so good about determining that Jesus was pierced for our discretions, he was despised. All this description in Isaiah 53 perfectly fits Jesus. That archaeologists thought that some Christian had put it into the Bible at some point after Jesus died, right? They thought he snuck it in there, and they think that too about a lot of things in your Bible. They think, oh, some well-meaning Christian guy just stuck it in there after the fact. But, they found in 1946 the Dead Sea Scrolls, which had Isaiah 53 in them. And guess what? The Dead Sea Scrolls were around before Jesus was born. So Isaiah 53 is real. And that should send shivers down our spine. We have the biblical account of Jesus Christ in the New Testament. Within these letters, we see that the apostles faced persecution, poverty, death for their beliefs. They didn't prosper materially for their beliefs. They were ostracized, and they were hated for them. And people will not usually die or face severe torture for some kind of hoax, something that they don't think is real. And besides, they saw Jesus risen 3 days later, right? And not just them, but 500 people were witnesses to this same thing. And they caught on like wildfire, this thing called Christianity. And all these witnesses and all these people said, yes, I saw him. And you know what? They sent them to jail. They killed them. They did all these horrible things to them. But people kept on believing more and more and more until there was so many people that the critical mass of it took over the entire Roman Empire. Okay? That doesn't happen because people are trying to make stuff up. How many people here are dedicated to the myth of the Loch Ness Monster and would die for it? You know what I'm saying? Think about that for a minute. These people died because they know what they saw. And that should give us some profound faith that what is written in the Bible, what it tells us, is true. And that is outside all of the external evidence that's around the Bible, all the different writers and the people trying to excuse the fact that the sky turned to darkness when Jesus died, saying it was a solar eclipse. However, it's scientifically impossible for there to have been a solar eclipse when Jesus died that year in Israel. There's all kinds of things out there, and that's what the study of apologetics does for you. It tells you about all this other stuff out there that supports the Bible. The most important thing in our life and in our faith is the Bible. It is our authority. But in order to engage with other people that say, I reject your authority, we need to know these other things, and we need to know the weaknesses of their own beliefs. That it takes an amoeba 56 million times to travel across the universe, 56 million times for amino acids to come together and form one protein. And you're trying to tell me that what I think is stupid, what you think is stupid. That's truth. I don't want to sound so harsh, but it is truth. And if you know that, when they argue with you and you're saying, look how this bird, his beak changed from this much to this much, and it must be true, right? How many dogs is there? In 200 years, look at what they've done with dogs. You have these ones, purse puppies, and you have giant ones that you can ride like a horse, right? Why? Because things change. It doesn't mean that we come from amoebas, though, does it? It doesn't mean that. So we understand, if we look at it logically, that God is real. He's the creator of the universe, and he sustains it by his power, by his will. That the Bible is the true word of God and is communicated to us through the prophets and inspired men that took that truth seriously. They took it to the grave. They took it to their deaths. And you know what the Bible tells us? The Bible tells us some real information. The Bible tells us that judgment is coming, that everyone will be judged according to their deeds. And everybody knows what they've done in this life that they're not proud of. And that everybody knows that they've all fallen short of perfection. And telling us some fake fables or whatever it is to try to make us feel better about the fact that we have to face what we've done in life, that everybody in this world is accountable to what they've done. And people will go through any means necessary in order to not face that reality, in order to not face the fact that they have stuff that has to be answered for. And are we ready? Is anyone ready to face God knowing that they have that guilt and their shame on their heads? I know I wouldn't be. And that's why I think it's so amazing that we have Jesus Christ to thank every day for the fact that none of us who believe in him and trust in him and are baptized in his name have to face that judgment. Because Jesus will take the punishment on himself, and he has taken that punishment on himself. And that is God's gift to every one of us, that he sent his son to die for us. And knowing that he is out there and moving and changing all the things in the world every day, trying to give us every possible opportunity to come to life, to be with him, to be saved, is amazing. And I hope that if you have not yet accepted Christ, that you think about it logically, you think about it reasonably, and you say, what am I going to do with my life? And if you want to get baptized today, we can fill this thing up with water. It only takes a couple of hours. So if that's something that you want to do today, I want to encourage you to come forward as we stand and we sing our closing song, How I Love Jesus.